Hey friends. Hi. Look, I never show off my outfit, and I'm wearing this. Look, it's like an Andy Warhol banana corn from Pony. Uh, I can't remember what it stands. Poor one, newly young. Pony. She makes really great things. Anyways, I love her, and I really love my earrings. So today I showed off my outfit. Welcome back to another episode of Have I Told You the One About the Neighbor? Have I told you the one about the neighbor? But really, remember how we pronounce this? We actually say the neighbor. This story is a little intense. If you are feeling vulnerable, you should not listen to this story. This is not the story for you tonight. This is a story for people who are punk rock, hardcore, and really like, let's just say, the macabre. So, 14 years ago, when I was still living in Vancouver, I lived in the Lee Building. And the Lee Building, I mentioned it before. It's a little bit famous because it's right at the corner of Main and Broadway in Vancouver. It's a big intersection, and Kingsway is just a block over. So there's a whole bunch of traffic going on there. And the Lee Building is over top of the street. So you actually, if you're waiting for the bus on Broadway, you wait underneath the Lee Building. There's a little walkway that's part of the building, and it's on a hill. And for quite a long time, it was the tallest building on that hill. And now they've built a bunch of high rises near there. Main Street's been growing. But I lived there after I turned down the Vancouver special. My friend Belay managed to get me into the Lee Building. It was a really great building. It was full of writers. It was full of a whole bunch of different kinds of artists. There was this really sexy guy who made furniture on the roof. Oh my God, he was so cute. He gave me a jacket once. I still have it, and I wear it sometimes. And there was this cute kid named Ian, who was this redhead who was from Saskatchewan, and he was the nicest guy. Whenever I moved to Vancouver, I always said that I moved from Toronto to Vancouver. And I was so impressed at how friendly people were in Vancouver compared to Toronto, because Toronto could be quite cold. In Vancouver, people were really sweet when I first moved there. If you were walking down the street and you were halfway down the block and you thought you wanted to cross 12th Street or 12th Avenue, which is 4 lanes of traffic. And I wanted to cross, I lived on 12th for a month, and I would wait in the middle of the block, just waiting for the traffic to go, and traffic would stop in both directions. It was so annoying. It made me crazy coming from Toronto. They don't do that in Vancouver anymore, but there was a time when they did. And when I met somebody, I always said that everybody in Vancouver was nicer than people in Toronto. And when I met people who were nicer than Vancouver people, they were from Calgary. And if you met people nicer than the people from Calgary, they were people from Saskatchewan. And Ian was a little redhead from Saskatchewan. There are all these redheads in, oh, Jesus, are you kidding me? I had another glitch. Well, I still haven't figured it out. It's just ghosts. So I lived on the 6th floor in a 1-bedroom. And I lived there for, I think, 4 years in that apartment. It was a really cute little apartment. It was affordable. And one day I was at work. I worked at the UBC library at that time. And I got a phone call on my cell from Marilyn, who was the building manager. And Marilyn was also an artist, which is why there was a whole bunch of art people living in the building. And she gets me on the phone and she says, Michael, and I'm like, yes. She goes, I have the RCMP here and they want to talk to you about your neighbor. And I was like, okay. And so she puts me on the telephone with this officer, this guy. And he says, I want to talk to you about your neighbor who lived in whatever unit. So I knew which one it was. It was the one next door. He wanted to know the last time I saw that guy. And I said, well, I saw him maybe, what was it? It was 2 days before. And he was with somebody. I hadn't seen him in quite some time. And he said, yes, he was in the hospital. And he got let out. And that person he saw 2 days ago was probably his caseworker. So my neighbor, I don't know what my neighbor's deal was, but when I first moved in, I was a very social person. and I would say hi to everybody. And I lived in Lee Building. I knew the Lee Building was full of artists because Blay had lived there for a long time. So I would say hi to everyone. And my neighbor was probably about my age. He may have been a little bit older than me. He was probably, I was in my mid 30s. He was in his probably early 40s. And he had kind of shaggy hair. He was a bit dumpy. He was, just kind of a dude. Like he looked like an average person, like just a small town average, whatever, like guy, straight guy. Anyways, there was nothing spectacular about him. So I remember meeting him in the elevator, and I would say hi to him, and he wouldn't even look at me. And I was like, what is your deal? What is wrong with you? Well, it turns out, stupid me, he had some kind of developmental issue. And he wasn't very social. He wasn't very verbal. He talked a little bit. And eventually he warmed up to me because I'm friendly. And I would try to, when I found out, I would go out of my way to be friendlier because I didn't feel like he was being a jerk. And he was really nice and responsive. And he would say hi. He got used more comfortable saying hi to me. And it was great. And sometimes at night, when I'd be in my apartment, I would hear him. It was an old building, so it had plaster walls. They were really dense. It was really well-built building. You couldn't hear a lot through the walls, but he was so loud. Some nights he'd be wailing in his apartment, and he'd just have these freakouts, and whatever. It didn't disrupt me that much, and I didn't know what I could do to help. I checked in with Marilyn. She said, he's fine. He has people who look out for him. And I had all kinds of my own problems. So whatever. He was my neighbor who made a lot of noise sometimes. I was used to it. I had lived with Jim on the other side of me, and Jim had major freakouts. So I never found out his name. I never got this neighbor's name because we didn't talk very much. And I told the guy, I'd seen him 2 days ago, and he didn't look very good. He looked quite sallow. He was really yellow. He'd lost a bunch of weight. He had quite a beer belly, and he'd lost a bunch of weight. And I was quite surprised at the look of him. And the officer said, "Oh yes, he was in the hospital. He had a liver condition, and they had let him home. And the reason why I'm asking when you last saw him is because he died." And I was like, "Oh fuck." And he said, the police officer said, "Is there anything that you can tell me about the last few days?" And I said, "Okay, well, I didn't hear from him again or see him again after, I didn't see him again after that woman dropped him off, but he was crying out at night in his apartment that very night. But I didn't think anything of it because he just did that a few times a month. And, what do you do?" I just felt terrible, terrible. But I didn't know that he was sick. I guess I could have put it all together, but you sort of mind your own business, right? It's weird telling this story in a pandemic and it's also weird telling the story from a place where I'm much more emotionally, and I'm like more of an adult in the world, and I'm not as insecure, and I'm not as neurotic, and I don't have as many problems as I used to. So I have a great deal more generosity. Like I actually help people quite a bit in my life. And it's weird I didn't extend any help. I didn't know how to help. It was so awkward. He was so awkward. Anyways, it all came flooding in. It just became all so obvious what a shit I was for not having done more, because he did look terrible and he was freaking out. And I just assumed it was the same old, and it wasn't something new. Anyways, he died. So I found this out at work, and I just felt it was devastating. It was awful. It was just an awful turn of events. So I finished my shift feeling a little bit rattled, and I bike home. You have to bike up the hill. And so I got a little bit sweaty biking up the hill, and I brought my bike in. I always bring it into my apartment. And I took the elevator in with my bike, and I went up the elevator, and I dropped my bike off in my apartment. And I always went up, I would buy my groceries every day if I was going to eat at home. So I went up to the little market. I thought, I'm going to go to the little market. I'm going to get some food. So I dropped my bike in my apartment, and I take the stairs down, And normally, if I had my bike, I take the elevator up, but normally I take the stairs. I started biking because I would take the stairs. I lived on the 6th floor, and I started walking up all the flights of stairs, and then I would run up the flight of stairs, and it made me a little more fit. So I started biking, and then I became like a little bit sporty instead of being just a big old sissy, which I'd been raised to think I couldn't be sporty, but I kind of was, and it was really exciting for me. So, anyways, I go to the corner store and I buy some food and I come back. And just as I'm coming back, oh no, when I was leaving, this is it. Sorry. When I was leaving, these two guys were coming in with these great big 4-foot high steel bins on wheels. They were rolling them in. I didn't know what it was. And I thought, oh, there must be somebody doing some construction or something. And they were just coming in as I was heading out. So I went to the corner and I remember I bought ham. I bought sliced ham. I think I was having fried eggs and ham for supper because I was going to go out again later that night. So I was having a quick and dirty breakfast for supper. And when I came back, those guys were just coming out of the elevator again. And so the elevator was right there on the ground floor. And I thought, okay, I just biked up the hill and I ran and I'm in a rush. I'm not going to take the stairs today. I'm just going to take the elevator. So I jump in the elevator and the doors close. And the minute the doors close, I was in a hot box of rot. It smelled like they had 100 begonias in that elevator that were rotting. It was this strange, rich, deep perfume. And that was the smell of my neighbor. Those drums were fans that they were bringing up to put in the hallway because his door, when I came home, I hadn't noticed the first time, but his door had been sealed and the seal was off, and it was they had gone in there and they had put these drums in the apartment and also in the hallway. That smell was in the hallway. It wasn't in my apartment. Those fans stayed in that hallway for 3 months. They ran 24 hours a day for 3 months. And that smell was everywhere for, well, at least 2 of those months. Maybe I just got used to it and I didn't notice it. I know what death smells like. It's so human death. It's so odd. Anyways, I could not believe the smell in the elevator. It was overwhelming, and I rode it all the way up to the 6th floor because what do you do? I was stupid. And I went into my apartment. I saw the door. I went into my apartment. I closed the door and I was like, holy cow, that is so intense. And I ended up talking to my friend Belay. Belay lived above me, and he kind of knew everything in the building. He was friends. Marilyn, who was the building manager, her daughter was this punk rock, fabulous actress, singer lady. She was amazing, and she was really good friends with Belay. So Belay tended to find out things, right? He talked to Marilyn. Marilyn talked to his daughter. Her daughter talked to Belay. Oh, geez, I'm getting all the names backwards. Anyways, so I was talking to Belay, and I said to him, okay, well, that was intense, right? My neighbor died. And he's like, oh yeah, I heard. And I said, so I wonder if it was the smell. Like, I didn't smell anything in my unit. Was the person on the other side or the person across the hall? And he said, oh, no, it was Ian, the cute little redhead. That redhead lived below my neighbor on the 5th floor. And Ian had this drip in his ceiling, and he was like, oh fuck, what's happening? The tub's flooded or something. And so he went and he got a cloth and he wiped it up, and the drip, it came again. Like, it started to drip faster, and it was like dark and creepy. And so he called Marilyn and said, look, I got a drip and somebody needs to do something. It's the neighbor upstairs who would bang around and stuff. So Ian wasn't so crazy about him. And they went in, and Marilyn had keys and went in and found him in his suite. And he was lying in the middle of the living room, rotting. And so what had been dripping through the floor was the neighbor. The neighbor was there for 2 days, and he started to come through the ceiling from the floor above. They had to cut out the entire floor and ceiling in between those units because they could never get rid of that smell. And poor Ian was traumatized because he'd been wiping it up, right? It is just the worst story. It's the worst story. Sometimes I refer to this story as the drip. Because, what do you do in the face of horror? Laugh. That is the neighbor. I want to give a shout out to Trent. Oh, what a sweetheart he is. Remember yesterday I mentioned that Trent was my friend who worked for David Furbish. I think that's his name. Shit, I didn't look it up again. Who is... Why is my connection unstable? So Trent works for the mother-in-law of Elton John. Well, Trent writes me yesterday and said, or this morning, and says, by the way, that was a hoax. I don't actually live in the Okanagan. I don't work for Elton John's mother-in-law. That was just my April Fool's on you. Well, hello, stupid. Call me sweet. Anyways, I got had. So now I need to take a new story from the Magic Story Bag. What is tomorrow's story? I've been coming up with new ideas, right? Because who knows how long we're here. I'm just going to tell stories till I run out or you're sick of me. What are we doing tomorrow? Sunday. Oh my God. Sunday. My first blackout. Ugh. Well, there's nothing like humiliation to bring people close together. Tomorrow's my first blackout. I want to remind you to click the notification bell if you want to be notified for whenever stories are coming up, whenever they're live. Like this video and share it and subscribe to my channel. You can send me mail. I love getting mail. I love hearing from people. You can send me mail at michaelvsmith.com or you can tweet things out. Nobody's tweeted yet. It's okay. I don't care. At Michael V. Smith. And I love getting selfies. Some people send me selfies. Should I show the selfies? I don't know. They never tell me if I'm allowed to. I don't ask. Maybe I should show some selfies. Okay, well, maybe I will. Anyways, send me some selfies. And I think that's it for all the things I need to say. I love you. Be safe. Wash your hands. And have a good weekend. We'll see you tomorrow. I got to click there. And then I click over here too. Just like that. Ooh.